to another episode of Fearless Singer. I'm so excited because I am interviewing somebody that I met last year who I just honestly find so inspiring. I saw her pop up in a group or a business group that I actually bought. I saw her testimonial and I just thought, oh my God, this is a cool looking bird. And I went to her website and turns out, yes, I was very true. It was very right. She is very, very cool. Her name's Kerri Layton. She is an incredible jazz singer, but she also is a business coach as well. And I'm just reading from her website. She says that she helps predominantly women musicians to create more life balance, joy, abundance, and creative impact in their lives through coaching, consulting, and mentoring. If you go to her website, she's got so many incredible free offerings. So you could be part of the Spiritually Thriving Musician Facebook community, and I'm in there, and Kerri is so generous with all of her content. And also you may want to, I've purchased this, and that is the Get Booked boot camp, which is, again, just packed with incredible resources, teaching you how to position yourself to get pretty much better paying gigs. That's the way I sort of see it. That's why I booked. I was like, how do I get those premium gigs? And Kerri has literally had like over 16 years experience cultivating that in the music industry as a singer, but also as an agent. And so I'm really excited to say hello and thank you for being on the podcast.
What a gorgeous introduction. Thank you. And yeah, likewise, I feel like we're kindred spirits, really. And that people who are listening to the podcast can't hear this, but can't see this, but it's the morning in the UK and it's the evening in Australia, and we're both wearing pink, and like we're just like mirrors of each other, but different. Same but different. But equally.
No,
Yeah.
we are. We're very, very, I think, it's so funny how like you're kind of attracted to people kind of like yourself, so I see this beautiful raven haired, I'm like, oh, hello.
No, but we've got we've got a bromance going on, haven't we? What's this?
Yeah.
What's the female? The sister man.
Sistermans. Yeah, that sounds way more feminist. I like it. But you actually, we were just talking before I hit record, and Kerri said this incredible thing. She said that I was telling her about a story on the weekend where I had to kind of exercise my sense of self-worth, and she said, you know what, there are some times where you just have to really own being a diva, and you have to own that energy so that the universe knows exactly who you are and what you want. And I thought, oh my God, what a great way to start. Has that been like a mantra for your life? Is that how it all sort of came about?
Yeah, I think I've learned that, actually. I think I've learned it. And especially as a woman working in music and all the bro energy that exists, and it is changing. Our landscape has changed drastically over the last 10 years and continues to do so. And we need more women artists. And that, when I started as a singer, that working with an all-male jazz band, there was a vibe that, oh, we've just got another diva on our hands. The long raven-haired, red-lipped jazz singer is here again. We've seen her before. We'll see her again, And I got to a point where I actually had to really step into that energy and say, this is not a passing phase. I am here to stay. This is my purpose. This is my vocation. This is what I'm doing. And then almost those comments, I didn't even hear them. I don't even know if they still get made or if I just don't actually hear them anymore. And they just fly off me. They just bounce off me. And it was a part of me developing a thick skin, because we're sensitive as musicians. Male musicians are sensitive. It's not just women musicians. Whatever gender you prescribe to, you are sensitive. That's part of your job description. So actually, this isn't just for the female identifying of us. Actually, just owning. I think I like there are two different types of diva, and I think, like we were saying, there is a time to be a diva and to really own your energy and say, look, this is what I'm doing. I sacrificed so much to do this. I live, breathe, sleep, eat my art to bring you this show. So here are my terms and my boundaries, and own that. But then there's the other side of it, when people maybe are starting out and they have ridiculous demands, and even at the other end of the spectrum, the Mariah Careys, the diva, the diva. We should have a diva scale, shouldn't we? We should have like a diva. Sorry, 1 second. I'm just turning my phone off. Should have been off. It's really bad of me.
No, it's all
Um,
good. I do the same
when
thing.
people turn up at gigs, and you can see that there's like a subtle energy, and I'm trying to get it across, because there's an energy, there's a time and a place to be a diva, right? And there's a time and a place not to be a diva. And I think you turn up at a gig, I just don't care really how famous you are. And I've met some really famous divas. I don't care how unknown you are. I don't care what your life stage is. When we get on that stage, we are all the same. And when we work on a gig together, we are all the same. I'm not more important than the lighting technician or the hospitality staff, and vice versa, right? And that is the only way that you will work really well and you will have a long career in live events, is to have that mentality. But
It's
believe
really,
me,
it's really just about, I think, obviously being a good person and having that humility, but at the
yeah.
same time knowing your worth, isn't it? And just knowing that, that no one, it doesn't matter. You just said it doesn't matter who they are. No one has a right to, put you down or make you feel uncomfortable or cross any kind of boundaries, that kind of thing. So I think,
And also, as a performer, you don't have the right to throw your weight around, and demand and be a diva in that respect, and think, well, I'm the star of the show, so therefore you all jump and do what I say, and what I want. But there is a time and a place when you have to do that. And that's what we were talking about. You
yeah.
actually have to get to that point and say, actually, this is my terms. I am the star of the show, actually.
Yeah.
It's contradictory, but there's
You will pay me the fee that was in the contract or whatever it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Um,
people will try it.
Kerri, so we're just talking about how similar we are. You were a high school teacher as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so take me back to the very beginning. A very good place to start.
It's a
When
good
were you a kid that always sang and performed and then went off and then studied music or education, or what did you do? Just what's a little
But
bit of the
my
backstory?
evolution into performing arts, my um journey was long and slow, and I wasn't one of those kids that was always singing and dancing and I want to be famous, I want to be a singer. I was very introverted as a child, and I was very withdrawn and shy and quite nervous, and singing was the one thing that, and the performing arts, discovering the performing arts, gave me my wings, gave me my confidence, and it helped me access that relationship and that dialogue with the world, that if I hadn't have had that, I just wouldn't be who I am today, which is cliche and it's obvious, but it's true. And so when I was really young, I did get involved in DJ workshops, and I did lots of creative workshops in my hometown. So I was an army kid and we moved around a lot. But when we came out of the army into the civilian life, I got involved in as many music and art activities as I could. And then as I grew up into secondary school, I wanted to get away from the house as much as possible. So I signed up to every single activity that I could sign up to, which involved me going to Egypt, Morocco. My dad signed me a sick note for a month off school, and I ran away to it so I could go to Egypt, basically,
Oh
with a
wow.
bunch of kids. So these were really formative experiences for me that involved culture and people and essentially youth work. So I was really the beneficiary. I benefited from the most amazing government at the time and the funding opportunities for children who came from disadvantaged backgrounds, which I wouldn't have even put myself in that category, but I was, I'd had problems. I had some issues, and I was just scooped up by these organizations, but also, like, to give myself credit, I was eager for them. I wanted the change in my life, So I had these really amazing experiences with these incredible leaders who showed me a different way and self-development, and they really started to bring that voice out of me and the confidence. So those are my formative years, and through that I then got this amazing opportunity to go to Russia and train as a youth worker. And I had been involved in these projects, and they'd passed my name on and put my name forward and said, Kerri is super keen. We can't shut her up. Send her to Russia, please. But I was so blessed that I went to Russia with 6 other young people from around my area who'd also shown passion and drive and ambition. And we went over and we trained with an ex-Soviet politician who, Anton, I wish I could remember his surname. Anton, I'm going to find it. Anton was an amazing character, and he had trained at the Californian Association of Youth Counselors, CASC. Now, in California, they had this youth lead youth concept where they were buddying older students with younger students for realization, for self-development, basically. So before the Soviet Union crashed, he took his money and he took a little pot of funding, and he recognized that Russia was in trouble, and he went and set up an organization called the Association of Youth Leaders, and it was massive. It was huge, and it transformed the lives of thousands of young people. He went and set this up in Russia, and then they had children from all over, like Belarus, from Ukraine. Then they also had children from Japan, from Tokyo, and then they brought us over from the UK. So he'd really grown it, and their ethos, youth lead youth. And we basically I did a whole degree, a youth work degree, diplomas with them. So 3 years I studied, and I did that between being in the UK and being a teenager and then going over there. So that was really my fundamental start to education and working with young people and working with communities. And I also was a total stoner because I was like 17. So I was at art college at the same time. And here is where the lovely marriage happened of art and community and youth work. So I really grew up with Russia. I graduated then when I was like 18, 19, and I got my first job as a youth worker, a level 3 paid youth worker in my hometown. And I really just had this real passion for working with young people that has never, ever, ever, ever left me. And with music too. And I just witnessed firsthand the transformations that happened, that delicate space between realizing who you are and expressing yourself with music in a safe way. Children who have had a challenging start to life and who don't have safe boundaries to express themselves at home, which was what I experienced. So I was then at 19 holding space for teenagers who were taking drugs outside the youth centre, and some of the other youth workers at the time were hiding in the office, right? And I was one of the like frontline youth workers out there talking to young teenage boys who'd just taken ecstasy tablets, like taken before they came into the youth club. And the other, and I was not fazed by any of that. I wasn't fazed, and I was able to just sit with them and just be a lad if they needed me to be a bit laddie with them. But we had an amazing breakthrough, and one of the young lads who I was mentoring, or is one of the service users at the time, I organized a series of DJ workshops and brought some local drum and bass DJs into the youth center, and they were listening to this awful, awful music, in my humble opinion. And I said, boys, if you want to have a good time now, we need to change the choice of music, okay? And they said, no, not this drum and bass. Anyway, we brought these DJs down and they did these DJ workshops with these young lads. And this young lad fell in love with drum and bass, and it turned out he had a really natural talent for beatboxing.
Oh my
And
God.
he became an amazing beatboxer. And have you heard of the drum and bass DJ producer Goldie?
Yes.
He ended up going and being in Goldie's band.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
He went and got it gave me goosebumps then, like, because
Yeah.
I'm so proud of him, and he did an amazing, and he's done amazing things. And obviously, like all of us musicians, our lives and career paths are up and down, and this is why I don't subscribe to X Factor ideals. I think it's great exposure, I think it's great experience, but I just think that we need more voices to remind people that if your vocation, if you're choosing music as a path, there are going to be times where you're getting jobs like you're in Goldie's band, and there's going to be times when you're teaching classes of teenagers, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't change who you are or what your message is or how talented you are, because it's a life. This is a life choice, and it's forever. So that's how it started, basically. That is how I got into teaching, and I got into youth work, and just to sort of wrap that bit up, how I basically, I didn't pursue music myself as a career path until I was 28. And that's a whole other little bit of story. I don't know if we've got time to go into that today, but that was a really nice evolution for me, where I feel like the universe gave me that support back to spread my own wings.
I actually wouldn't mind hearing how you got into, and particularly into jazz singing as well. Yeah. Did you have like a love for all the old classics growing up?
Always.
Yeah.
It was when I was 19, around a similar period of time. So 1920, living where I was living in the north of England, a lovely town called Lancaster. I was living there. I kept finding old jazz books, and I was reading about Billie Holiday and Dinah Washington and Sarah Vaughan. And then I was finding LPs and vinyls and records, and I was listening, and I just really loved the melodies, and I loved the melodic. I loved the structure of jazz. It always felt really, I wanted to say dangerous, but it's kind of not what I meant, but like rebellious, but I think the rebellion came a bit later for me personally. But at the time it felt, I don't know, it felt really right, and it felt very exciting. But I also really loved electronic music, and so I was really experimenting a lot with sound, and I could have gone in that direction as a producer and produce. I got into radio, and I did some radio and performance skills, presenting skills. I think I just didn't have very much direction at that point. So it didn't really blossom for me. The jazz didn't blossom at that point, but it was a love that was there early on. And I came back to it. So I went off and I lived my life. I went traveling, and I was a youth worker, and then I was a teacher. I got into drama, I was a drama teacher for years, and that was amazing. And I really went into performing after my teaching drama at the secondary school. I was head of drama. It was an amazing job. And I just decided, I thought, I'm going to give this a shot, because I was 26 at the time. And I thought, if I don't give this a shot now, 26, 27, I think, then I won't do it. This is my time. And if it doesn't work, I'll go back to it.
Hey, Kerri, can I tell you something? Sorry to interrupt you. It was the same age that I thought exactly the same thing, and I went back to uni to study music and did jazz at 27.
Wow!
The same thing. I was like, if it's kind of now or never, that type of thing. Oh, I mean, it felt like that then. In retrospect, I would have picked it up later, but yeah, it was that definite fork in the road at the same time.
I love that.
Yeah, and actually I was in the UK. I was coming back from the UK.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. Where were you
Yeah.
living in
I was
London?
just living in London. Yeah, I stopped over in Shanghai for a few months and then came back and then thought I can either keep doing the communications, so I did, yeah, did like journalism and corporate communications, or I can now just go right, just jump into the deep end and go and study jazz.
Wow, I love
Yeah,
it. And you went and studied jazz properly. You did a degree.
I did the degree only because I just didn't have the contacts or the network,
Yeah.
to start a band. Or, by the way, at the time, now I feel different, but at the time I didn't have the discipline to go, right, I'm going to sit down and learn 30 jazz standards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I hear you.
yeah. So, yeah, there are people that can do that. And I'd say to them, you don't have to study, and they're natural at making those connections and those networks. But yeah,
But you do need a guide, and I think that's really important. I think whether you choose to do it in a formal educational setting or you do it and you hire a mentor and you work within a mentor or you join a program or you surround yourself and you make yourself vulnerable and you ask somebody to be your guide for that time.
yeah,
You do
absolutely.
need it because that was the
Yeah.
route I went down. I did a degree. My degree was creative events design and production. Um, but I didn't do a degree in music. I didn't formally study in music. I did what I just said. I
Mm.
asked people, and I went to a big band boot camp. I went to a jazz summer school with some really established jazz musicians. Johnny G, Andrea Trello, Mick Foster, who's an absolute sweetheart,
Mm.
amazing saxophonist. Andrea Cello's like Herbie Hancock's drummer. He'd done 2 albums with Herbie Hancock.
Yeah.
These were very established jazz musicians that had
Mm.
put this one-off, 1 week boot camp summer school together, and it was like £700, and I didn't have a penny. And I'd started singing the Christmas before, so after I'd left school, I'd gone like teaching at school. I'd moved back up to my hometown.
Mm.
I lived at the other end of the country. I'd moved back home, and yeah, so that's how I did it, and I got in and I saw this poster I was doing this gig. I got myself a vintage mic and I started with the Jazz Divas and I started just practicing with my voice, and that's how I got into it. And there's another lovely story. I'd love it if we've got time
Yeah,
to tell
absolutely.
you in a
Tell it.
second. Yeah, there's a lot how I basically really entered the music industry, and and now I've called my agency and my record label and my events company after this story. So
Mm.
I'll come on to that in a second, but I basically just started to really spread my wings with music, and I saw this advert. I was singing at a local pub Sunday afternoon. I saw this advert, big band school, jazz band, summer school. I didn't have barely any money, and I just did a whip round. I made a video and I did a Kickstarter campaign. We raised about £1,000. I had a tiny bit of money left over because it happened very, very, very quickly for me, Mel. From that moment of deciding that music was the thing, and I had a voice, which I'd always known, but I'd kept quiet. I had never sung in front of anybody really confidently. I'd kept it very quiet, even though people had heard me sing and said, you can really sing. I
Mm.
knew I could sing. I knew from a young age I could sing. I used to sing in my bathroom and think that I was just impersonating the singers on the radio. And it was only when I was in my 20s, I realized, oh gosh, actually, I am a singer. I can sing. So it all happened very quickly. So I did this whip between doing the whip round and raising this money, and I had a tiny bit of money left over to go into my merch pot, which actually the merch pot never materialized because I ended up going on tour. So I ended up funding this tour. I ended up getting, within the space of 6 weeks, I'd got on this summer school jazz band boot camp, which was amazing, and I
Mm.
learned how to put a band together. I learned how to sing with a big band. I learned all the phrases. I learned how to get my voicing correct. I learned how, it was a real indoctrination
Mm.
into playing jazz. And I got booked on a tour in Ibiza, and I went over to Ibiza and did a gig. So straight off the back of it, 2 days after that, I flew to Ibiza.
Oh my
and
God.
was playing with on the beach in some 5-star venues with an amazing saxophonist and a DJ, and we did this deep house. And then I was thinking, oh my gosh, everything's coming together. Like my love for electronic music and jazz has finally made sense. So we were singing at the poolside and doing these amazing shows. And then I came back to the UK. I recorded an album with a band, and then I jetted off again and I did 2 European tours as a cabaret singer. I had these like cabaret acts with I just chose these songs. I did this like Whitey Rabbit, and I did these sort of puns, cabaret comedy cabaret songs. And so I ended up flying around Europe. I got back and then I was booked on a tour in France, and I flew over to France and I did a Christmas tour in France and Switzerland in the Alps. And that was the year that there was no going back then. I thought, wow, this has never happened to me ever before. This is it. This is it. And the really beautiful thing that happened is that when I moved back to Lancaster, so I left my teaching job in the end of the summer term. And over that summer, I moved back to Lancaster. And it was the first time I'd ever lived on my own. I rented a house. So I was 27. I rented a house on my own. And the only time I'd ever really sung before that was in the van. I had a little van that I drove. I used to live in it. And I used to go between the other house I lived in and university. It was very, very fun, cute little red van. Because my university was like an hour and a half away from where I live. So I'd sometimes just sleep.
See a little dog. Oh, Kerri's just brought back her dog. Is it a he or a she?
It's a she. She's named after Memphis Minnie.
Oh, she's so cute.
Oh, she's sweet.
Isn't she gorgeous? She's got a lovely
She's
face.
a sweetheart.
Yeah.
There was a van outside reversing, so she had a little bark.
Oh, okay.
So where was I? Living on my own. Yeah. So I'd had this cute little van. Anyway, that's irrelevant. Sorry, I'm just waffling. Isn't it? ADHD.
No. I love that. I think a lot of people resonate with the fact that you drove around singing in your van.
Yeah, like Postman Pat in this. It was a Royal Mail van, English Royal Mail van that I'd converted into a little home. And so I parked it outside university sometimes to sleep over, so I wouldn't have to drive the commute in the mornings. It was really good. But that was the only time I ever sang, was because I was on my own in the van. So when I got this house, it was when I just got all these songs and I was starting to sing, and I just had nobody to be quiet for. And it was really liberating. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was lovely. And I sing in like Ella Fitzgerald's really early song, Tisket a Tasket, and just going as far back with the jazz and the blues as I could, and meeting all of my heroes in song and just immersed myself in their world. And it was just so healing and beautiful. And I just felt like these voices of the past were my spirit guides at that time. And it was really healing and beautiful. And I was just singing all the time. And the neighbor came and knocked on my door one day, and he said, "Excuse me, love, is that you singing?" Is that you singing? And because I'd been so used to people telling me to be quiet all my life, I honestly just thought, he's coming around here to tell me to be quiet. So I immediately got a piece of paper and wrote my number on it and said, "Look, please just text me if I'm ever bothering you." And he was like, he said to me, "Are you kidding? Are you kidding me?" He said, "I'm coming around here to tell you that every time you sing, me and my mate turn the television off, and we get the pint glasses out, and we put them up against the wall so we can hear you, and we sit there quiet as a mouse listening to you sing."
Oh.
He said we actually message each other now to say, she's singing again, come down. And we sit on the stairs and we listen to you for hours. He said we just couldn't handle it anymore. We had to come and tell you, you've got a really, really beautiful voice. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. This is
Oh,
amazing.
that's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And it turned out that he was in a halfway house. The house next door was a halfway house. It was a safe house. And he was a recovering alcoholic, and he was in rehab, and he was drying out, if you like. He'd been in hospital and he was there now.
Mm, mm,
So over the course of this period where I'd grown massively in confidence, and I was starting to hang out with the jazz boys in the local jazz club who were also building my confidence, and they were giving me songs to go and try and helping me develop my craft. The neighbor was standing on a bin. I lived on a really steep street,
mm,
and my house was on the higher level, so he would have to stand on the wheelie bin to look over the back gate, the back
mm.
fence, and he'd talk to me, and he'd say to me, oh, Kerri, play the one about the basket again, that tisket a tasket.
Yeah.
Play the one about the basket again. So I'd be blasting out all these vintage jazz tunes, and he was just dancing around. And unfortunately, he'd started drinking again. God bless him. And but they were in the garden, and they were dancing to all these really old songs and just having a lovely time. And I went away, and I managed to tell him, I said, look, I've got my first few gigs. I'm going to do this jazz summer school, and then I'm going to Ibiza, and then I'm coming back and I'm recording an album. I said, I'm doing it. It's just happened. I can't believe it. It's happened so fast. And he was really happy for me. So I flew to Ibiza, and when I got back, he'd unfortunately passed away.
Oh, sorry.
He'd had
It's really sad.
it's really sad. And he
Mm,
had an overdose, he drunk too much, and he passed away. So it was really sad, but bittersweet, because he'd kind of given me a gift, really the gift of a lifetime.
mm,
He gave me that gift which released me from the shackles of self-doubt and
mm,
the abuse that I'd suffered.
mm,
I finally had that permission, because I'd had a real life interaction with somebody who it really meant something to,
mm,
my music and
mm,
my voice.
mm,
And that really felt very special, that his last few weeks were spent singing and dancing to really old songs
mm,
and having joy. He just loved it. He really loved it. He was really passionate about it. So when I came to name my record label and my agency Dixie Bird Records, I named it after him,
Oh,
because
wow.
Dixie is the Dixie cup.
Yeah.
You listen to the detective voice, the Dixie Cup. And I didn't want to call it Dixie Cup because there was a band called the Dixie Cups.
Yeah.
But I liked the semblance of Dixie as well, and the old, Dixieland were the first commercial jazz band. They were the first jazz. It was the first, really, the music industry's packaging of jazz,
Mm,
really, the branding. And I liked that as well. So yeah, Dixie, and then Bird, because he gave me my wings. So it's a lovely story. And I just think that when people are going into music, and there are so many options now, it feels like we're not in the 1970s anymore, where there's A&R hanging around every street corner waiting
mm,
to sign you and
mm,
sign talent. Like, if you have got a talent, it's really up to you to do all the things to put it out there now.
mm,
And you can't, this is where the diva thing, looping back to what we said at the beginning, just because you've got a talent, you can't expect the world to just fall at your feet and open up opportunities for you, right?
mm,
It's in those little magic interactions, that's the beauty of it. And then it's what you want to do with it from there, so I just feel like I'm continually blessed with those interactions and those moments where I can be on my knees thinking, gosh, this industry is so brutal. It's so tough. And I see it with my acts that I support in the agency, and I see it with venues that are suffering with the cost of living crisis, and I see it with
mm,
the pandemic, and I see how much my fellow artists have striven, is that the correct to put their art out there
mm,
and overcome so many hurdles. And I see it with the people that I coach, like how they're constantly facing adversities but still putting their music out there. And I just think
mm.
when you get those moments, it just makes it all worthwhile. you
Oh,
know?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I just sorry, I had to pause just to let that all sink in. That's honestly so beautiful and so empowering as well, inspiring, and it is. It is about now we are in a different day and age. It is really about just get your idea and find that belief in yourself and create it. Like there's so much agency now, with music. There's still a few gatekeepers, but not a lot. You can find your audience. It doesn't matter
Gosh,
if you've got
because
a
it's
strong story, a strong message to share. Your audience will find you, really, as long as you start
yeah,
opening your mouth and telling your story and singing about it.
yeah, and you know what? I'd go as far to say that even if you don't know what your story is yet, um, it will come and you will work it out. You have to just keep it's that sense of vulnerability again and
Mm,
not and owning that at the same time. Yeah, it's been a bit so you can start to see where those connections are happening.
mm,
If there's people listening to this, they don't know what their message is yet, but they know they can sing. Like you said, just open your mouth, start singing, go
mm.
and share it because it'll come. Like those connections will come, and you pay attention to those serendipitous moments. You pay attention to the opportunities that present themselves, and that fuels you. Yeah,
And you just don't know when you could be singing next and someone overhears you, like yourself. Someone was literally listening to you through the wall. Do you know what I mean? And they may have an opportunity. Do you know what I mean? For you, like, oh, have you
yeah,
thought about going and singing at this jam, or
yeah.
just and like you said, just being open to all those little clues, and really what
Clues.
I'm going to call him the Dixie Bird because he was the cute little Dixie Bird, but
Yeah,
yeah, he yeah, he just basically opened something up in you that went, oh, I can do this, I can be
he
this,
did.
yeah.
Yeah, the Dixie Bird. He did.
Mm.
His legend lives on.
Yeah, it's honestly so beautiful. And now, what's really exciting is not only are you a gigging musician, but yeah, you're helping other people
Yeah, I
navigate
feel.
navigate all of this as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had such I've always had a good head on my shoulders, quite practical. Um, and I think that the music industry kind of needs demystifying a little bit.
Mm. Hmm.
Um, it needs demystifying for us, not necessarily for the people who want to come and enjoy the music or enjoy the show. Because
Mm.
I still believe a little bit of smoke and mirrors is good. And I think
Yeah.
people people want that, right? They don't want to know what the struggles and strives are. But I think
Mm.
that in that when I started out, if I'd have had some really practical guidance in that way, which I did, I went and found it for myself. It was there, and I had to ask people for it, but there wasn't somewhere I could go and say, "Oh, I'm going to sign up to this or have this session." It really evolved, and yeah, I just want. I also, it's about empowering people to know that you can apply some entrepreneurial sass and be savvy
Mm.
and make this your full-time career if you want. It's possible.
Mm.
I did it for years. I was a full-time singer for 5 years before the pandemic, like full-time, like I made my full living from it. I had a beautiful house in London. I was living the life. Really, I was a socialite slash singer, but I lived the life. I lived the dream,
Mm.
and very quickly because we don't have too much time. But my path, and I had a vocal operation, which is when I started my agency. And then we had the pandemic and I started an online business and I went back to teaching. So that teaching is in there again now. And then obviously
Mm.
coaching, the teaching modality is just part of your big journey. And I grieved being a full-time singer. I think a lot of us did when we had the pandemic. But I'm gigging musician again now. And the beauty is that I actually really get to pick and choose what I do, when I do
Mm.
it, who I sing for. whether it's a high paid corporate gig or whether I do a local show with some local musicians on a Sunday afternoon just because I want to, because music is my life. And I think I was quite rigid when I was a full-time professional singer. And I think you have to have a sense of rigidity because you have to get paid. Even now, I don't work for free. But I feel like when you start to honor all the gifts and all the parts of you, you can go on your own path with it.
Yeah,
and I just
absolutely.
think that's the message I want to do, like with the spiritually thriving musician. It's like, I can't sit here and say I'm going to help somebody go and get onto Billboard, and we're going to get them some number ones. Like, I can guide you if that's what you want to do and show you the steps, but it's not like that's the only path for you. If you're a musician, if you want to thrive, there are so many aspects of your multifaceted character that we can take into that consideration. So I'm loving holding people in that space where we explore like what they need, whether it's a productivity session or it's mentoring. It's really nice. It's expansive. It feels expansive.
Yeah, I think so. Just to echo back what you said, it's like most of us are multi-passionate, multifaceted in terms of, our creative output. So, and I'm the same. I love coaching, and I love the entrepreneurial side of everything. That's big part of my creativity. I love branding. I love design. I love building websites, and I love recording corny songs.
Yeah.
You know that I've got a song on YouTube called Unfucking Magic?
No, but I am going to listen to it.
It's so funny. We actually, Yas Queen got booked for a corporate gig, and for whatever reason, I don't know how it happened. They came back to my website and they found one of my that song, and they sent, because my co singer was dealing with this particular booking. They sent back the link to this going, "This is perfect. Thank you. This is the perfect song for our event." And she's like, that's not us. That's Melissa being a dickhead.
But did you do it?
No, we didn't do it, but they got their wires crossed. But yeah, they said that we love this song.
Oh, wow. Well, that just goes to show, just being yourself and not trying to fit yourself like a square peg into a round hole. That authentic expression of yourself.
Yeah.
If you were to took yourself too seriously, I am a jazz singer, and you didn't do that song, they loved it.
Yeah. No, that's it. It's so funny. I used that expression this week in a blog post that's coming out on Thursday. This idea of, like that's been my journey. My journey has been, I feel like with you, I feel like you've always recognized that who you are. There's been an element of, this is who I am. For me, I've always tried to force myself into different people's cultures, in terms of like schools that I've worked at. And I use that expression. It's like for years I've been this, round peg trying to fit myself into a square hole. And I just realized I don't have to do that anymore. Just, I can just have my own cultures, my own values, and just, live by that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like you do that so beautifully, Kerri. Just in everything that you do, your coaching and your music, you're definitely just living such a rich, authentic life.
That's beautiful. Thank you. So nice to come and hang out with you today.
Oh, so lovely too. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Maybe you can return the magic and come and do a talk in the Spiritually Thriving Musician.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
I would love that.
Yeah, my dream.